Welcome to this morning's live lesson. And what we're going to do today is we're going to look at, let me make sure I bring up the right thing. Not that, no, this. So hopefully you can see this. This is the past paper 2 writing that we've been looking at over the last week or so. And don't worry if you weren't here for last week's live lesson, it doesn't matter. Every time we look at a different idea, different concept, you are learning something, okay? And I generally want to focus on past papers because I feel that right now it's most students are preparing for the exams, not everyone, but most of them. And so it's nice to just go over the kinds of things that you can encounter in an exam and the sort of answers you should or perhaps should not give, okay? All right, so last week we had started to look at paper 2, which focuses on writing. Let me just choose my pen here. And I'm going to make it a bit bigger, I think. Yeah, okay. But today I want to focus on a particular part of the writing, which is imaginative writing, particularly descriptive writing. All right, so last week what we did, and don't worry if you missed it, it doesn't matter. You can always ask me for the lesson notes if you need them. Last week we looked at question 5 under section B, which is writing for an audience, which is very similar to directed writing, where you have to change the format of something and write according to the limits that they're giving you in the question. You have to really focus on the question. And last week's question was number 5, where we looked at a debate. And somebody who gave a strong answer to this question and somebody who gave a weaker answer to this question. And the kinds of things you should avoid if you're trying to write two comparative texts or two contrasting texts, okay? So that was what we focused on last week. This week I want to focus on number 3, very randomly, number 3, which is write a descriptive piece called The View from the Window. So you're given a topic. So and it must be descriptive, okay? So the number 1 is a narrative option. Number 3 is the descriptive option. And remember that when it comes to narrative and descriptive writing, one is about focusing on descriptions, on settings. So let's just write this down. It's all about your settings or surroundings. It's all about the senses. And it's all about feelings and impressions, okay? Feelings or impressions, all right? Whereas with a narrative exam question, narrative writing, it's all about the story. So let's just compare question 3, which is descriptive, to question 1, which is narrative. So question 3 says, write a descriptive piece called The View from the Window. In your writing, focus on colors, so there must be colors, and light. To help your reader imagine the scene, you've got to create vivid images so that your reader can imagine the scene, okay? Number 1, just to contrast this, is write the opening of a story called Missing, in which a person suddenly disappears. In your writing, create a sense of suspense and mystery. 2 very different options. And with a story, you're going to have characters, some sort of plot, even though it's just the opening. Things have to happen. Whereas in a descriptive piece, events are not the focus. Descriptions are the focus. Although from time to time, there will be a kind of a crossover that happens. Remember, in story writing, there can be descriptions. You do get a description of the setting. You do get descriptions of people and their characters. It happens, but there is a story. There are characters. Whereas in a descriptive piece, it's not so much the story or the characters that are important, unless you're describing a particular character, a particular person. But it's more impressions, the scene, what's going on, what things you can describe in the scene, not so much the events or storyline. There is none, okay? So that is the difference. And I just want you to keep that in mind when you look at descriptive writing. So we're looking again at paper 2 from the last section that we looked at last week. Or not the last section, but with the same paper. And it says that in preparing for section A, imaginative writing, candidates should safeguard against the confusion of tense forms. Okay, so this is what we're going to see today. When you start writing in, for example, the present tense, I wake up, I do this, I do that, and then you just move to the past tense randomly. I ate my breakfast. I what else could, you know, just sort of moving from the present to the past in a very, very strange or unnatural way. And in fact, instead of me trying to pull out some random examples, we'll look at the piece today and we'll see what I'm talking about. If a candidate begins an imaginative writing task in the present tense, they should not switch randomly to the past tense. We shall see this. Candidates should also do more showing than telling, and this is hard. Showing is when it's almost as if you're behind a camera and you pan out and you pan in and you zoom in and zoom out to things around you. And so you are showing something. You see a flower unfolding. Put that into words, okay? You see the sun rising, the change in the light, the change in the colors. Use words to describe this. Don't say, the sun came out over the mountains. The birds flew high in the sky. Okay, that's too much telling and not showing. So as to make the reader feel as if they are in the world created in their narrative or in the description, okay? And try to use a broad range of effects in their work. The descriptive pieces were more successful when the candidate was able to structure the piece around more than one factor, not just the passing of time. So they didn't focus on just one element. Other things were brought in, okay? And we'll see this, an attempt to kind of do this in the piece we're going to look at today. Then what else did I just want to look at here? Oh yes, this idea of time management. Time management skills are essential. Overly long narratives in section A often led to short, underdeveloped section answers for section B. So you've got to be really strict with yourself. You've got to say, okay, I've got 2 hours. I'm going to devote 1 hour to this section. If you see it's coming up to the end of your hour, stop. Start the next one. Okay, so you just got to be very, very well practiced and strict with yourself. Let's see, there were other funny things that people did. Let me just see. Okay, we'll get there. All right, so the one we're going to look at today, question 3, let's just see what the examiner said about these questions in general. The view from the window produced some imaginative responses. The most successful candidates seem to draw on their own experiences for this question. And that is an excellent thing to do. You will write much better when you come from a place of knowing or of experience than something you're not quite familiar with, okay? Writing a clearly descriptive piece rather than narrative, so that's good. Some highly imaginative scenarios were observed, including describing views from a moving taxi. Example, one that contrasted gray New York in the daytime with the lights of New York at night. Or the feelings evoked of freedom and liberty as viewed through the bars of a prison cell window. Some clever ideas were explored by students. Too many simply describe general lovely countryside with birds chirping happily and lush green grass. So in other words, avoid cliche kind of ideas, right? Just don't go to the first thing you can think of. Be imaginative. Too many simply described, also, a number of less successful candidates provided answers that were mainly narrative rather than descriptive. These answers generally attempted to attach labels of colors and light to every object, thus desensitizing the reader's reaction to any possibility of descriptive contrast. So there is such a thing as overkill, okay? Don't overdo it. Things must be worked subtly and with nuance and with control. And there's certainly a way of doing this. And at some point we have looked at some descriptive writing in some of these lessons, which was brilliant. And the candidate managed to do, that student managed to do a very, very good job of descriptive writing. But today, I want to look at the kind of thing you should not do in descriptive writing. Okay, so here is the candidate responses, that paper. You can get hold of for yourselves on the internet if you want to. Just have to look for it. And let's have a look at, you can look at all of this for yourself if you ask me for a copy of these lesson notes on the main web chat system after this lesson. It's section A, question 3 that we want to look at. Let me just make this a bit bigger so we can read it nicely. So remember, the question they're answering is the view from the window, and they've got to focus on color and light. That must be the focus, but don't overkill it. There must be elements of that in there, but there can also be a focus on other senses from time to time, all right? But the main focus must be color and light. So, imaginative writing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the view from the window. So good that they actually put the title in. Titles do not have punctuation marks after them, unless it's a question or an exclamation. I wake up every morning to see the sun rising from its bed. Okay, that's a nice image. The sun was sleeping and now it has risen, it has woken up. Now, what tense are we in? I wake up every morning. This is something that happens regularly. Okay. Let's see how they evolve this answer of a regular, or this idea, sorry, of a regular event occurring. It is one of the best scenes that I get to watch every day. Okay, not a great word, but okay. I get to watch every day. There's a spelling error there. As soon as I wake up, comma, I cover myself with my fluffy woolen blanket. Okay, it's spelled woolen wrong. And perhaps we would already want some kind of suggestion already at light provoking this act of being woken every morning, because the focus needs to be on light and color. Have we seen anything about light or color just yet? Okay, the sun rising, but not a direct hint at light or color. All right, so I cover myself with my fluffy woolen blanket and I turn my face to my side. Now here the examiner has said, there's a spelling error of turned because here's that E without the D, but this should be in the present tense anyway. So perhaps this candidate didn't know how to spell turn, or perhaps they wanted to now locate themselves in the past, which they shouldn't be doing because they're talking about a regularly occurring event. And so it should stay in the present. I do this, I do that, I see this, I see that kind of thing, right? So, and I turn my face to my side to look at the window. It was there, and here is tense inconsistency, because if you're talking about this regular habit that happens, it is there. The breathtaking view of the day, the beautiful ball of orange, and this is good. Now we're coming finally to some idea of color, but it took a long time to get there. The beautiful ball of orange tender fire, and I think that says tender. I can't quite make it out. Orange tender fire, and if anybody has anything else to suggest for what that word is, please feel free to do so. Orange tender fire. Now that's an interesting image, so that's good. Revealing itself from the deep blue mountains, so that's good. Now this is looking much, much better. Okay. Then the next sentence. It's as if it's all planned. How strange. It's as if it's all planned. It sounds awkward, doesn't sound quite right, doesn't flow, it's a bit jarring. Maybe perhaps something like, it's as though some unknown power had planned this all. Okay? So that every day when they wake up, they feel as though it is some unknown power who plans this all, or has planned this all. You can use the past tense from time to time, but the main part of the sentence is in the present. It is as if. Right? So I don't quite like this awkward phrased sentence. I'm just going to say awkward. This student needed to stay more in the present, and I needed to word things a bit better. When the sun throws its warm rays from behind the sleepy mountains, the magic happens. And here we have a spelling error. Okay, the magic happens. What magic is that? Slowly the region, spelling error, below the mountains light up. The region light up. lights. Okay, and that is what we call a concord error, or in other words, concord error. Come on. Or in other words, a subject verb agreement error. Oh, it does not want to let me type. The pen has gone a bit berserk. Agreement error. So the boy kicks the ball. One boy kicks the ball. The boys kick the ball. Okay, so you really need to pay attention to the number of nouns you have doing a particular action, okay, in order to avoid concord errors. Right. So be aware of these little details. So slowly the region below the mountains lights up rhythmically. Spelling is wrong. Okay, so it lights up rhythmically. Can light be rhythmical? Isn't sound more rhythmic than light is rhythmic? We don't necessarily relate the idea of light to rhythm, unless perhaps you're in some sort of club where, you know, lighting is used to complement the music, right? So very strange idea. The yellow field, good, there's a color, yay. The yellow fields gets there. So once again, concord error, gets their shiny, sparkling touch to it. Let's read that again. The yellow fields gets its shiny, sparkling touch to it. So perhaps what would have been better is to say the yellow field gets a, okay, so you could have there, you could have a shiny, sparkling touch to it. And this is fine because shiny, sparkling is relating to light, so that's good. The scarecrows, okay, that's an interesting thing to pick out, but okay, the scarecrows come alive, is that a good thing, with a beaming smile on its, so scarecrows, plural, its, so concord errors throughout. The scarecrows come alive with a beaming smile on its pet pot face. Okay, so something very strange going on there. And even the examiner struggled with that. Let me just see what the examiner said for number 7. Unclear what pot face means. Also, scarecrows is plural, but it is singular. So just this little attention to detail will upset you. You know, if you're not doing that, your marker will probably get upset, you know, because you can't be bothered to pay attention to what you're writing. But so it means that the marker constantly has to try and correct or figure out what you're trying to say, and it can get exhausting. So make things easy for your marker. The sun rays travel further down the main lane. Good, so we're still focusing on light rays, good. And reach all the small huts far away from my home. Okay, so we're reminded that this is a person looking out on the window. I could see that, and this word is speck, I could see the speck of flowers dancing along with the sun rays like a magical dust which is being sprayed on this paradise. Very awkward expression going on here. Okay, so first of all, we're talking about flowers. So flowers would be specks. I could see the specks, little dots, the specks of flowers dancing along. So maybe they're moving on the wind with the sun rays like a magical dust. Okay, that's a pretty idea. And we do talk about specks of dust, that's good, which is being sprayed. And here is a full stop. Why? Which is being sprayed on this paradise. It's a bit strange. And is it really a paradise yet? I don't know if this description so far conjures up the idea of a paradise. It definitely pulls on the idea of something tranquil, something beautiful, but not necessarily a paradise. Okay, so just be careful with the kind of vocabulary you use. It must match up to the ideas you are creating. I have always waited for this moment. You have always waited? I thought you did this every day. I thought this person woke up every day. So you can't now say, I have always waited for this moment. When the sun, so the person could have said, I always wait for the moment when, because that would be regular, repetition, habitual action, when the sun rays reach my window. I stretched, so back into the past tense, As you'll see, just doesn't make sense. I stretched my head out of the window. Okay, so are you lying in your bed looking out the window? Or are you now at the window? Okay, and I could feel the warmth of the sun rays on my face as I took a deep breath. This is why the tense does not match up. As I took a deep breath, the fresh, cold air flowed through my body, waking up my sleepy cells. All right, at least there is some other sense that has been pulled on, the sense of touch. All right, the fact that they're cold, and that's fine. You can add the odd thing here, but we really want to focus on light and color, and they definitely could be more focused on color. Far away from my home, I can see small people coming out of their huts and getting ready for the day. Okay, so are the people really small, or do they just look small? Okay. It would be better to say something like distant figures. Okay, distant figures coming out of their huts, and then we'd know that they appear to be small from the perspective of things. And getting ready for the day. They had a tiny brown basket or baskets with them, and so how can they all have a tiny basket with them? Once again, concord, subject, verb, agreement, which they carry. Okay, they carry along with them around the field. Okay, very strange. I knew them all, but I haven't spoken with them. And it would have been better to say, I knew them all by sight. So I recognize them, even though they can't quite make out who these people are, but okay, if they're so far away, how could you? But you know them all by sight. That would have clarified things, but I hadn't ever spoken to them, or I have never, keeping it in the present tense. I have never spoken to them. You usually speak to people, you don't generally speak with them. In one of those tiny huts, there were 2 dogs. Okay, this person has brilliant eyesight. One with olive black what? And the other with husky brown what? So fur is what was needed. They also enjoy the sunlight like I do. Now we're back to the present tense, okay? But they had their own way of enjoying it. Very good. At least now we're focusing on some sort of color and something else happening with a description of things, but the main thing should have been light and these sort of details. Each day they turn behind, chasing each other, or they run behind. I don't know if it's run or turn. They run behind, I think it's run behind, chasing each other and jumping with joy. Whenever I see them, my soul, is a spelling error, jumps inside me with joy and happiness. So I don't know if this is quite focusing on color and light. It's nice that, you know, there's a bit of variety going on here in terms of what's going on in the scene being described, but focus more on color and light. How does the light reflect off their bodies? How does this reflect what the dogs are feeling? Okay. So here the marker has said there's a general idea lacking specific concrete details which would have engaged the reader. It's just too generic, random. Why are we now looking at these dogs? And then, you know, spelling errors. So let's have a look. How much more have we got to go? Because I've got to keep an eye on time. Okay, we're not too much. By this time, I can hear, we're back to the present tense, the chirping sound of the birds. Cliche. I lean down to look at the bird's nest on the mango tree in the garden. All right, so now we're looking at a mango tree in the garden. The mother bird was feeding her chicks. I could see their dark, cold, black eyes gleam with excitement. This person definitely has brilliant eyesight. If you can see how birds' eyes gleam from a window looking down at a tree, then it's quite unusual. Okay, so try to be a bit realistic, try to be a bit sensible in the things that you write. Okay. The mountains are now widely awake and wild. The rich emerald green, good, surface of the mountains are densely populated with wild bushes and trees. I always wondered, okay, don't do this, because now you are going into some sort of reflective essay. This is not meant to be a reflective essay. It is meant to be descriptive essay. What is happening around you? Okay. I always wondered what was under those mysterious thick bushes. What a strange thing to think. So when we look at bushes and trees, do we wonder what's under those bushes? I find that a very random thing to write about or to even think about, okay? I think we generally just accept that they're bushes. And of course I'm generalizing, but this just doesn't sound natural, okay? And it is one of my unanswered questions about nature. This has got nothing to do with description. So stay focused. Okay, and then finally, so we've got 3 minutes. All of these give me hope and something to look forward to. Once again, this is not descriptive. I would never miss this moment in my day. No, not at any cost. I get out of my bed and shift myself to my wheelchair. But wasn't this person just looking out their window, leaning out the window? Unless perhaps the window is at their bed. Maybe that's what it is. But it's just a bit of a strange, it's unclear what the perspective is. It's an interesting twist, but I'm not sure it's relevant to descriptive writing. As I move across my room, I turn back for the last time towards my window and give a big, hearty smile. Sounds a bit unlikely, sounds a bit fake. So keep things real, keep focus on description. We want to see beautiful scenes. We want to imagine the beauty. And yes, this writer has touched on that. The student has touched on ideas of beauty, but not enough. And they have not focused enough on color or light. Let's have a look at the examiner's comment here. The candidate could have developed more specific details in this short answer. There is some focus on color and light as demanded by the question, but there is more telling than showing in this composition. Imagery could have been developed further to enable the reader to better imagine the scene. Spelling and tense errors were made throughout the composition. The candidate could have spent a few minutes checking the work at the end to correct these errors. Okay, so we want you to pay attention to detail. And then let me just see common mistakes candidates made in this description. Question 3 wanted the description to focus on colors and light. And if this hadn't happened, then you weren't really answering the question. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough again. And then if we go down a little bit further, it says that, where was it in question 3? Okay, I don't know if there's anything more specifically about question 3, but as you can see, they did not focus enough on what the question was asking of them. Excuse me one more time. And that is a problem because Cambridge wants to test your ability to read the question closely and to read the text closely.